Hey everyone, my name is Ford from NorCal Thrills, and today I'm bringing you an update from California's Great America on April 22nd, 2021, aka the first public day the park is open since December 31st of 2019. It was amazing and a little surreal to walk through the gates of the park after so long and think about how different the world is now versus how it was then. But this long gap was taken advantage of well by the park, and Great America looked better than I've ever seen it. So let's take a counterclockwise walk around the park and see some of those big and little changes that the park changed since we were last allowed in. Of course, let's start with COVID procedures. As you'd expect, masks are required except for in designated mask break zones. These are located in various areas around the park. Also, like other theme parks, California's Great America does not do temperature checks and instead has the traditional metal detector followed by ticket booths. I expect some of these policies to change when California officially drops its COVID restrictions in the middle of June. The park's main fountains in Celebration Plaza were looking great and remain an amazing way to be welcomed to the park. This area's main inhabitant, Gold Striker, was unfortunately running a little rough, but still remains a great wooden roller coaster. Moving over to Hometown Square, we can see that at Patriots Exit, what used to be a shelf for ride merchandise has been replaced with a couple of arcade games. Maggie's Smokehouse got a new sign and interior layout. Whereas you used to order from either computers or cashiers at the beginning of the line and then get your food, you now order and get your food before reaching the cashier at the end of the line where the big pots of barbecue sauce used to be. The other big change in the area was that Whitewater Falls was out of commission, drained, and missing its lift hill. Some were quick to suggest that the ride was being removed, but I'm not so convinced. It remains on the park map, remains on the park website, and is listed under the scheduled ride closures as reopening early summer along with Orbit and Berserker. So I have my doubts that it's going anywhere, but I'll keep my eye on it as we go along. Before we leave the area, I wanted to share some footage of Railblazer that I took. The ride was running extremely well today, and riding it for the first time after such a long time made me realize just how lucky us locals are to have such an amazing roller coaster so close that we can ride all the time. County Fair is where the brand new pavement that the park added begins, and it ends all the way around the loop in Orleans Place. It looks so much better than the cracked old pavement that used to be in the area. Action Zone is up next. Let's start with an aside about the staffing in the park. Due to low staffing levels, some rides, like Drop Tower, were closed on Saturday, and their staff moved to other rides, like Drop Tower staff was moved to Tiki Twirl. Drop Tower was open on Sunday, however, so as the park continues to staff up, these ride closures should be less common. One of the other tentpoles of Action Zone, Grizzly, was also closed on Saturday, but for less concrete reasons. The ride cycled for most of the day, which makes me unsure whether it was a lack of staffing like Drop Tower, a regulatory issue, or needing to just train ride ops. Regardless, I also expect the ride to be open in the next couple of weeks. The biggest change in Action Zone undoubtedly is the Psycho Mouse repaint. Like I mentioned in a previous video, the ride was repainted from its original yellow and green paint scheme to a much nicer tree-colored brown and green scheme. In addition, the trains were repainted and the mouse mural on the queue building was removed. Like I mentioned before, it's fairly apparent that Action Zone is gradually evolving to something much more natural and locally themed versus the in-your-face paint and concrete it kinda was before. Our next stop is Planet Snoopy, specifically the collection of rides including Woodstock Express that stand near the new Pacific Surge slide complex, which I refer to as the Planet Snoopy Annex, since it isn't contiguous with the main Planet Snoopy area. Like I previously mentioned, the rides in the area got a repaint and they look fantastic. Also interesting is that the path to the left of the Snoopy statue was reopened after being closed last year. There isn't anything particularly interesting in the area, only a Peanuts meet and greet structure and a rest area with some picnic tables, but it does have access to an area of land that could be an expansion plot for either Planet Snoopy or for South Bay Shores. I'll keep my eye on this as we move forward. And speaking of South Bay Shores, let's take a quick look at some of the changes that have happened since my tour in April. First, signage looks more or less complete. Like I mentioned previously, I absolutely love the colors of the sign, although I do have to wonder what exactly the Pelican Plunge Festival is. We can also see the brand new scrim on the middle tower complex that I previously mentioned, which also looks great. Along with South Bay Shores, new in 2021 in this area is South Bay Cantina, which I mistakenly called South Bay Burrito in a previous update. The former Outback Shack got a much needed clean new paint scheme with the logo on the roof being a nice touch. The menu was also on display, letting us see the fantastic Mexican food that awaits us when the restaurant opens. As you'd expect, Mass Effect is closed. I'd assume that when COVID restrictions lift, it might reopen, but until then, I'd assume that this ride will remain closed. Moving on, one of the henna stands in the area was replaced with a game stand, where players have to roll a ball and make it sit in a little dip. It seemed like a challenging but fair game, and I enjoyed my time just watching people attempt it. Further on in the area, we get to Orbit, which I was really hoping to see with its new paint job, but as mentioned, it remains closed until midsummer. Elsewhere, the 50s style gazebo and some decoration around it was removed. We were promised a refresh of the area along with Orbit's repaint, so I have to assume that this is still just being worked on and we'll have something fresh and new soon. Our final area is Orland's Place, where we can find a pair of exciting updates. First, Voodoo Charm replaces the Crescent City Clothing Company. Inside, you can expect plenty of unique clothes and other interesting gifts. Second, the park took the long off-season to repair some of the effects in Flight Deck's queue. Unfortunately, the ride was closed every time I walked by, so I couldn't get any video other than this spinning radar. But it's good to see the park invest in a classic ride like Flight Deck. In addition, like you'd expect, the park has introduced some interesting new merchandise items this year. I love this line of more retro, understated styles for the park logo and name. I don't remember seeing this Gold Striker shirt last year, and think it looks great. And who doesn't love a bunch of squishy candy? And that's all we have for you today. Even though the park reopened, I'm excited to follow the handful of projects that are still being worked on, like Whitewater Falls, Orbit, and South Bay Shores. Overall, I was very pleased with the park on its reopening day, and think that it will get even better once some of the kinks and staffing issues are worked out. Expect another update from me in early June as I give my thoughts on the new South Bay Shores water park when it opens.